Welcome back. Today I will be transplanting the pumpkin seeds. So you get to see how I make my mix. Now, I've already done that off camera because I didn't realize my camera died while I was mixing that. But here it is. It's just a combination of 2 parts peat moss, 1.5 parts sand, but it's equal warm castings, which is what I pulled out of these bins, and used a screen, a 1/8 inch screen. This is actually a screen bottom board for a beehive that I repurposed for this. Now, what's the difference between the medias? This holds 100% its weight in water. It's a pH buffer. Holds lots of ions and elements and minerals for the plant to grow in. This holds 20% its weight in water. It's more acidic. It has a lot of minerals in it, but the plants don't like the pH level, so you have to adjust for that. The sand is for drainage, so since this is in a pot, that water has a way to escape. You can also use coconut coir, which is pH neutral, but it's sterile, but that's it. Tons and tons of water weight, but nothing else. So I actually use this for my warm bedding, so you see I will make, and I will mix the peat moss in it. But here's my mix. So why you see me checking my phone is because I have to keep the Wi-Fi connection together. Otherwise it gives me a whole lot of trouble. Now I have my pots lined up. As you can see here, there's drainage holes in the bottom. So you can see some sticks already wanting to stick through. And why I do that is that gives me a little extra to conserve the soil. So I'm just going to roll my phone down there. Make sure it's working. Now, I don't like having dirty fingernails, so I always use a pair of gloves. Now, I've pre-moistened this because what will happen is when you put the plants in, the soil is real light, real fluffy, so it wants to fall out. You see right now it looks just like a slurry. And you see that's how it's going to look. Now, you're probably wondering why I didn't add any lime to this. Because I added the warm castings in here. That will act the same way as the lime will. Now I may need to mix some more here, because I don't know how much I need. I will do that off camera. As my camera is getting wet from the water. Now that is hard for me to clean up. You see how much water is being drained from here? Now, I don't recommend filling this up all the way up to the top, because if you do, you just make more work for yourself. You see how parts of this isn't even fully wet yet? Let me move my phone real quick. I apologize. There. That minor technical bloop. I don't really see start pumpkins. I'm not worried about the pot there. And I needed to do a lot more than I believed. So you may see me do this. You're going to see how much my battery lasts. But you see how it's clumping together? That's what we want in a seed starting. What I might do here is going to add a little bit a little bit. You see how much water is getting drained out of that? Then we're going to go add some more, because that was not enough. That's a good starting point. Let's clean up my phone real quick. Go back to this. So you get to see my firma. Now, I didn't have the bees being so adamant today. I would have actually gone and grabbed garden soil as my base. But unfortunately, I don't have that option, because I do not want to fight a swarm of bees. So I'm just going to go this way. So again, you can use a cup. Just be careful, this is a little bit messy. And this is 3 cubic feet. Now I like to take my time here. And you don't. And these are from peat bogs. So it is a carbon sink, as I said. And the way is, if you're following the global warming, climate change, whatever you want to call it, if you're more worried about that, it's best to conserve carbon sinks. But that's a carbon sink, because it's keeping waste material out of landfills. That's a carbon sink, even though it doesn't really contain. Trees are carbon sinks. So this depends what you're looking at. Now I'm actually going to add a little more peat moss to this. You have to be real careful, because this is dry, it's fluffy, it can make a mess real quick. And I'm using this as my base. You see how I just made a small mess? Later tonight I will make some warm bedding and show you how I make my warm bedding. And this is a 5-gallon bucket, so I can make math easy. Like I do 2.5 gallons, because this isn't quite there yet. Close enough. Now I'm going to do 8 cups sand, because this is going to hold lots and lots of water when I'm done. I'm going to go check on my phone to make sure it's still active. Which, if that's distracting, I apologize. I just don't have a good way until I get a better camera. Okay, we're up to 2. And this is a 1 cup. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. Now we're going to do 5 cups warm castings. 1. 2. 3, 4, 5, without me making a mess. You see how well this looks? This is perfect for seed starting. It's also perfect for a natural grade fertilizer replacement. Now you got a couple options of how to mix this. You can just use our hands. A lot of people are just going to be like, hey, I'm just going to get a bucket. I don't have a bucket available. So what I'm going to try to do is get in there. It will get a little messy. You can take a drill bit, like a spade bit or an auger, and use that. But I really like to do is just get my hands in here and just kind of churn it. Now everything heavy is going to sink to the bottom. Now this is always the slow part of the process. And if you want to add vermictin, you're perfectly fine. It's your soil. You can do whatever you want with it. Just be mindful that you need a certain pH range. I'm getting around it since I'm using worm castings. Now that's good enough. Unfortunately, a lot of sand's sticking to the bottom, so when I get some more water in here. And if you want to, you can add a fertilizer if you want. I use that for different means. This part of my manifesto as a gardener is to get away from organic. To get away from synthetic and lean more organic. Like I started this about 20 minutes ago, and you see how it's just still starting to form a block. So we just add more water to here. Rinse and repeat until we get the pots filled. And what's going to happen is this soil is going to reserve the water, because that peat moss is very dry and it likes to grow in wet conditions, bogs. There you see how it's already starting to bubble again. Just checking to make sure my phone's working. I might move you over here. Back on with the gloves. Which are now soaking wet, but it's okay. It's 103, so having a little moisture in my hands is a nice feeling. Do you see how this is sticking? That's how I know it's going to be good soil. I may have some problems with growth, but the plant will take care of itself. It will just slow down, which I'd rather have it slow down now than instead of at harvest time. And that's actually allowing some of the mixture to mix together. Anything extra, I'll just keep in the bucket and use for next time. My master plan here is when I get the plants started to top them off. This makes a lot of sense, because then you have to go back and refill, and you don't want to do work twice. Work smarter, not harder. Okay, gloves go off. Actually, no, I'll skip gloves on because it doesn't really matter. Alright. So you guys remember what my setup was? This for is Luminara, Caterans, Jack-o'-lanterns. Now, what you can do here, and you already see how the roots are extending. That's why I know they're overgrowing. This is why I was excited to use them, because I can just push them up with my fingers, put them in like this. Add more soil. And I can fill in around the plant. Now this plant's going to benefit from the extra incentive. You can pack them down, add more soil. That's not what I'm wanting to do. The plants that haven't emerged yet, I can just leave be. You see how bad this one is? Now this one, I don't have to worry about damaging any roots. Just drop them off. Plant them in here. It's okay if they crumple, because at this stage they're still pretty forgiving. Checking the phone again. Good, we're good there. Good. Okay, we're good there. Now for the cod ones. What I like to do is leave a couple of these out. You see how big the growth is on these? If they flop over, they're fine. But there's several reasons why I like the because you see, you can't do that with regular. You don't want to go too crazy in filling this up. That's the reason why I want to do this out here. So if I dropped anything, guess what? It doesn't matter. Now it's very important to remember how to separate the plants. Okay, next one. We're making excellent time. Some of you may be asking, why am I pulling the plant up? Like, you see how these on the stem, you see how this little hairs? That's the plant making roots. That's the reason why I'm checking occasionally to make sure these guys, if they're making roots, the bigger the root system, the better off they're going to be in the next couple months. Now everyone has different methods about planting. Doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. This is long. It's okay if they flop over. What you can do, because these guys are vines. Okay, you are a luminaire. Not that it makes that big of a difference. So you are a jack-o'-lantern. See how I got confused? Doesn't really matter, to be honest. Once harvest comes, I'm going to be a pot cert. So that's a root I just pulled off. This is okay. The plant will heal. And what I like to do is kind of squeeze it down and build up around it. A lot of this is still just like that. We're done. And if you're worried about, well, I'm losing dirt, guess what? It's all going to the same place. It's in the yard. It's better than having to pick up after it or sweep. Some of these I did better with by not filling back in, but that's just an example. Now, what old folk people would do, I tend to call old folk people, so like our grandfathers, they would actually plant these up all the way to the seedlings. The idea behind it is that will form a deeper root system. But you get the gist. Now the question is, what am I going to do with these? And I got 1, 2, what I'm going to do is check on here. Okay, I can go away for a few days with these, or plant them into smaller plants or smaller pots. What I'm going to do is wait on these because they're okay. I'm going to get a little bigger so that way we don't have what I don't have to worry about what they call transplant sock. So when you transplant this plant, but it gets so completely socked that it dies. Let me take the phone with me and make sure it doesn't. I'm going to let this air out. I said I was down the pot. Oh, that's what I just found. That's why we don't like wind. Well, guess what? I get to plant an extra one. Now, I feel a lot of sand down here. Oh, I got a little visitor. I found the sand. Come on, baby. Okay, don't drown on me, please. As that drains, I might plant one of these, figure out how much I have left. Yeah, I might cancel that, just use that as a backup. Let this air out. See, pretty clean hands. Let me put this back. I will put this back. This is a volunteer tomato. That way I can figure out if more of these coming up or not. Because you're not guaranteed every single seed. Apologize for my runny nose. They do need some more water because I just filled that up like yesterday. Now, how do we figure out, let's say I come back, forget about the seeds or the plants themselves. How do I combat that? Well, I got my hands in some Proper's labels here, as I broke one. Not that big of a deal. And you use I also use a Sharpie, a permanent Sharpie. Now, I'm not going to do the full. And some people will actually write all the technical things on this. But see now, I'm just writing this down. And it doesn't have to be spelled perfectly as long as you know what it is. Add. And you see how the wind is. So this was Cadwin. And probably some of you are wondering why I said a greenhouse. Indirect line of a path of wind, because that's the only spot I had, which I will give another in-depth video of this later on. Okay, Jack. And for you Jacks, that's nothing to be offensive over or offending. It's just my shorthand. And you see how bad my writing is. But there we go. So I can put this back in the sunlight. I'm actually going to give them a little break. And I will do a video later tonight, depending on how my camera is. This may work. I just invalidated everything. So let me get some water for those plants. Do a little bit of heavy editing. And upload this. And the bees smell the water. And if you're wondering, it's okay to have, because the roots can sit in water. The plants themselves cannot. That's good enough there. Put you up over here, or pour you back in.